Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much. So today I'd like to talk about the next chapter in this story. We will increase Earth-based observation, and we will extend the life of the International Space Station. We will build on the good work already done on the Orion crew capsule. We will increase investment right away in other groundbreaking technologies. We want to leap into the future by investing in groundbreaking research and innovative companies. We're going to modernize the Kennedy Space Center, creating jobs as we upgrade launch facilities. We will partner with industry. We will invest in cutting-edge research and technology. The space program has fueled jobs and entire industries. And in fulfilling this task, we will not only extend humanity's reach in space, we will strengthen America's leadership here on Earth.
Good morning and welcome to the Center for American Progress as we discuss the future of human space exploration with our special guest, the Administrator of NASA. This is the second program in a series on space exploration here at CAP. In June, we remembered astronaut Ed White on the 50th anniversary of his historic walk in space and its impact on our country in 1965. But as we noted then, our prime focus is looking forward into space. Where we'll go, how we'll get there, who will come with us, and maybe who we might meet along the way. This morning, the CAP website has posted a column written by our colleague Peter Jewell, Forging a New Consensus on America's Journey into Space. NASA issued its report, Journey to Mars, Pioneering Next Steps in Space Exploration, earlier this month. To quote the report, as pioneers, we work to blaze the trail for others. We pioneer space to discover life, identify resources, foster economic growth, inspire and educate, protect ourselves from space-based threats, and leave a better future for the next generation. The report added, while far away, Mars is a goal within our reach. Mars also featured in another report prepared for the Planetary Society that preceded this NASA report. To quote that report, the human exploration of Mars is affordable, much of the necessary technology is under development, and lessons learned from the robotic Mars exploration program can be applied in order to build a consistent, politically stable program that spans decades. Two reports, different perspectives, but a common conclusion. A human trip to Mars is within our grasp. We also begin this program today with the rarest of commodities in Washington, a little bit of optimism. It appears there may be a 2-year budget agreement that will move the current deadlock of sequestration, continuing resolutions, and debt ceilings to a broader discussion of policy and opportunity, at least for a period long enough to catch our breath and to be reminded that when we work together, big accomplishments are possible. That may open the door for consensus, an element of democracy that is as important as oxygen is for astronauts. On education, we want to ensure that the next generation has the tools to push the boundary of accomplishment on planet Earth and on a flight to Mars. And on technology and innovation, to foster jobs, opportunity, and leadership on reaching the stars and in the process making life better in our cities and towns. Today, a new generation of Americans, scientists, engineers, astronaut explorers, NASA and private sector leaders are looking for the consensus and common agreement that will bring that trip to Mars within reach. The technical challenges involving getting astronauts to Mars are daunting, and the long-term physical and psychological effects on such a journey remain uncertain. But the prospects for American leadership in human exploration beyond low Earth orbit are brighter than they have been for decades. The U.S. government and private companies are slowly but surely putting into place many of the capabilities needed to send humans to Mars. However, many critical questions are still to be framed. To discuss these topics this morning at CAP, we have the Administrator of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, Charles Bolden, Jr. We are glad to have you here this morning. He is a leader of particular accomplishment: Naval Academy, Master of Science, University of Southern California. I had to put that in because my daughter is a Trojan undergraduate right now, so fight on. He is an astronaut, Major General, retired United States Marine Corps, 100 combat missions in Vietnam, Deputy Commander of U.S. Forces in Japan, pilot of 2 space shuttle missions, including the deployment of the Hubble Space Telescope, and commander of 2 more shuttle missions, including the first joint U.S.-Russia space shuttle mission. As the administrator of NASA, Charlie Bolden has led the agency on the Space Launch System and the Orion Spacecraft for human deep space travel, new approaches on acquisition, prototypes to provide U.S. astronauts American access to low Earth orbit, and his tenure includes the Curiosity rover rolling on Mars, probes to Jupiter, our first close-up encounter with the planet Pluto, and the launching of the next generation Webb Space Telescope. It's a considerable record of public service and military accomplishment. And so please join me in welcoming NASA Administrator Charlie Bolden to CAP and his talk this morning.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Rudy and Peter, and a special thanks to everyone here at the Center for American Progress for allowing me to come in and share with you my perspectives on the future of human exploration. And first thing I would tell everybody is relax, sit back, take a deep breath. I promise I will try not to bore you. We do have Q&A coming up later, so you can come at me in any way you want. There's a famous story about the Greek philosopher Thales. One day, Thales is walking along, looking up at the sky and mesmerized at the stars, and he's so excited, so amazed, so taken by what he sees above him that he walks right into a well. In a sense, that's the old way of thinking about space and space exploration. That somehow gazing up at the stars or thinking about all the possibilities the future has in store for us distracts or takes us away from caring about what's going on right here on Earth. Of the things I admire most about my boss, President Obama, is that he rejects this way of thinking. I like to tell people he can walk and chew gum. Instead, he believes strongly that the things we do in space improve our quality of life here on Earth. More than 5 years ago, April 15th, 2010 to be precise, in what I consider to be a major space policy address, he offered a platform for space exploration at the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida. The President talked about the dual purpose of extending humanity's presence farther into the universe while strengthening at the very same time our country's leadership here on Earth. He explained that these goals are really one and the same. In a relatively short period of time, the space program has revolutionized the way we practice medicine, insulate our houses, purify our water, wear our eyeglasses, obtain television and radio signals, stay safe on our highways, protect our firefighters, feed our babies, power our electrical grid, and lie down for a night's sleep. That, of course, is only the short list. By the way, despite the popular misconception, we don't claim any credit for Velcro or Tang. Exploration has taught us more than we've ever known about our universe and our place in it. Data and imagery from satellites and the space scientists who interpret this information have educated us about our planet's changing climate. The International Space Station, which I believe ought to be considered for a Nobel Peace Prize, has already taught us about what's possible when tens of thousands of people across 15 countries collaborate so that human beings from different nations can live and work in space together. Yet, for all these accomplishments, when you consider the possibilities ahead of us, there's really only one conclusion that can be reached. We're just getting started. When I think about American progress, I think actually about my 3 granddaughters. You see, I've been blessed in my life, richly blessed. When I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, during the days of legal segregation, because of the color of my skin, I had to fight just to be considered for appointment to the United States Naval Academy. I never would have dreamed that I'd be talking to you today, not just as a 34-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps and an astronaut, but also as NASA administrator, serving under our first black president. I've been blessed to be able to travel to nearly every corner of our world, and I've been blessed to have seen the planet from space over the course of 4 space shuttle missions. I can honestly tell you that out of everything I've seen, however, there is nothing, not a single thing, quite as awe-inspiring as being able to look into the eyes of my 3 beautiful granddaughters, McKaylee, Kira, and Talia. To me, American progress is all about the world in which they'll grow up. The world where they'll someday raise their own children and grandchildren. When we talk about our journey to Mars, and when we talk about the next giant leaps in space exploration, we're talking about their generation. I like to refer to this generation as the space generation, not only because of the places they'll go, but also because of the expansive way they look at our world, our universe, and the possibilities that await them beyond life here on Earth. When I've told my granddaughters we're on a journey to Mars, they always ask me, why stop there? In broader terms, that's their attitude toward humanity, toward human possibility and American progress. Why stop there? Everything is possible. With this in mind, I want to talk to you just a little bit today about where I believe we can be headed as a country when it comes to space exploration and to earthly benefits that come from it. To put this into context, it's worth just very briefly to think back to the events that brought us to this present time. Presidents since Dwight Eisenhower have floated the idea of going to Mars. But on February 1st, 2003, tragedy struck for the second time when we lost the Space Shuttle Columbia. After giving things a long, hard look, the Columbia Accident Investigation Board made the recommendation that the Space Shuttle program should be phased out. The shuttle had already had a remarkable 3 decades-long run like no other. I traveled to space 4 times on the shuttle, and I can tell you that I love the spacecraft. There's never been a vehicle quite like it, a reusable spacecraft with the beauty of an airplane, actually the world's largest glider, and the capacity to carry 8 astronauts to space with a 60-foot payload bay. But every technology evolves over time, and although this was a decision to which I didn't arrive lightly, I agreed with their recommendation, as did many in the space community at the time. President George W. Bush agreed as well, and he made what I believe was the right decision to direct the phase-out of the Space Shuttle program. Fast forward a few years to the winter of 2009. Upon taking office, President Obama asked an independent committee chaired by former Lockheed CEO Norm Augustine to review the nation's plans for human spaceflight. The committee included astronauts, scientists, executives, educators, engineers, and a retired Air Force general, people as distinguished as the late Sally Ride. Their findings, quite frankly, were sobering. I quote, The U.S. human spaceflight program appears to be on an unsustainable trajectory, unquote. A few months after the report's release, in April 2010, President Obama came to the Kennedy Space Center and laid out the plan I mentioned earlier. This plan that would replace this unsustainable trajectory with a clear, affordable, financially sustainable, and ambitious way forward, a way forward that would expand our presence deeper into the universe while strengthening our nation's leadership here at home. The President's plan included ramping up robotic exploration of the solar system, commitment to completing the development of the James Webb Space Telescope to build on Hubble's legacy, and an increase in Earth science missions that teach us about climate change and how to potentially reverse its impacts. The centerpiece of the President's plan was and is a journey to Mars that will culminate with sending American astronauts to an asteroid in the 2020s and the Red Planet in the 2030s. To complete this journey, the plan concentrates both on getting to deep space and on extending the life of the International Space Station in low Earth orbit, enabled by a robust and dependable commercial launch system for cargo and crew as a replacement for the space shuttle. The reason that keeping the space station operational is so important is that it allows our astronauts to test the technologies that drive exploration. It also allows NASA to continue our study of the effects of long durations in space on the human body, while allowing our astronauts to continue to work off the Earth for the benefit of Earth. Meanwhile, the President called for deeper collaboration with entrepreneurs and other industry partners on developing the new technologies that the mammoth undertaking like Mars requires. These technologies have resulted in many planned and unexpected capabilities and products, like improved artificial limbs, memory foam, solar panels, and so many other technologies originally developed for the space program that also have invaluable earthly benefits. Of course, collaborations such as these are also valuable because they create jobs and they fuel our economy. 5 years after the President challenged NASA to send astronauts to Mars in the 2030s, we're closer to sending human beings to the Red Planet than ever before in human history. Meanwhile, a new consensus is emerging in the scientific and policy communities around NASA's roadmap and timetable for making this happen. In 2010, at the Kennedy Space Center, the President stood in front of a test model of the Orion Spacecraft, the technological foundation for future deep space missions, and he pledged it would be ready for flight. Today, Orion has now flown farther into space than any spacecraft built for human passengers has flown in more than 4 decades, having completed its highly successful maiden voyage on December 5th last year. The Space Launch System rocket that will someday propel American astronauts to deep space has moved from concept to development, and it's hitting critical milestones in its construction and assembly. Meanwhile, we're moving forward with an asteroid redirect mission that will test new capabilities like advanced propulsion systems that will be needed for future human expeditions to Mars. After pledging to extend the life of the International Space Station for 5 years, the President has now extended it for 10, to at least 2024. American astronaut Scott Kelly is halfway through his year in space and will be able to study the effects of such long-duration missions and to benchmark them with his twin brother, Mark, who is back here home on Earth. And in case you don't follow us, Scott is currently outside the International Space Station conducting an EVA to bring it up to speed and modernize it. We recently announced that our Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter confirmed the existence of flowing water on Mars. And we're on pace to send a new rover to the Red Planet in 2020 that will help us prepare for human arrival. For the first time ever, it will cache a sample for later return to Earth. Meanwhile, our American industry partners are now launching cargo missions to the International Space Station, and they're doing it from U.S. soil. To accomplish the President's goal of returning the launches of American astronauts to American soil, we've selected our commercial partners, Boeing and SpaceX, to produce their respective crew vehicles, the CST-100 Starliner and the Crew Dragon. We recently selected our commercial crew astronauts, the first 4 astronauts to train to fly to space on commercial carriers. Robert Bob Behnken, Sunita Sonny Williams, Eric Bowe, and Douglas Doug Hurley, all experienced test pilots and shuttle astronauts. In fact, they met with President Obama at the White House just last week. What we haven't yet been able to do is secure all the necessary funding to complete the commercial crew program. Had we done so when the President originally asked, we'd likely be preparing this year for those first commercial launches from Cape Canaveral. As things stand, we'll continue to be in a bit of a holding pattern until we get the additional funding the President has been requesting. But I'm the eternal optimist. And like Rudy, I believe we'll come to terms with Congress very soon. Maybe it's just me, but I believe that the greatest country on earth shouldn't be solely reliant on other countries to get our own astronauts to space. I should note that there are 350 companies working across 35 states toward the goal of bringing these launches home. So there's a lot at stake, not only in terms of discovery and exploration, but also in terms of job creation, growth, and opportunity. Across the board, our country's new technology economy is driving economic growth, and NASA's work is providing significant fuel for that engine. We're exploring deep space, but we're anchored right here on Earth, where we're creating jobs and fueling innovation and growth, recognizing that without American ingenuity and innovation, we would be right there in Thales' well. Aside from all these measures of economic, scientific, and technical progress, we've also been able to start to do something else, and that's to break through to the public's consciousness. You play a critical role in that, and for your work to date, we are incredibly grateful. Whether it's the publicity and the excitement that surrounded the New Horizons encounter with Pluto this past summer, and the Plutomania that followed, our recent confirmation of flowing water on Mars, or the new Mars enthusiasts who flock to the movies, like me, to see The Martian. There's a tangible sense I get as I travel and meet folks that NASA is in vogue right now. There's a coolness factor, and when you're seeking to capture public's hearts, minds, and above all, imagination, those things really make a difference. Now, with all this said, some of you, and I actually hope it's not too many of you, just a few of you, but some of you might be asking, okay, but why does all this matter? Why go to Mars? So this brings me to my opportunity to do a little audience participation. This is the audience participation part of my program. So when I point to you, the audience, I want you to repeat after me. Mars matters. Okay, you got it? When I point to you, just repeat in whatever voice you want, Mars matters. So get the grumpy looks off some of your faces, smile, and say Mars matters. All right, you ready? Practice. Mars matters. All right. Because its formulation and evolution are comparable to Earth's, Mars matters. Because we know that at one time it had conditions suitable for life. Mars matters. Because what we learn about the red planet may tell us more about our own home planet's history and future, and because it might just help us unravel the age-old mystery about whether life exists beyond Earth. Mars matters. You all are good. I need to take you back with me. When I think the world in which my granddaughters will be raising their own children, I see a world where their kids view human beings living and working on Mars as a fact of life, much as they view living and working on the International Space Station today. A future where NASA and its international partners are using Mars as a stepping stone to the rest of the solar system. I see a future where a robust private space industry is launching human beings, cargo, and satellites of all sizes to space at a significantly lower price point. Thanks to the work we're doing today to make launches more affordable and to advance emerging small satellite technologies like CubeSats and nanosats. A future where the next generation American company utilizes technologies developed for space travel to develop a product that improves our quality of life right here on Earth. A future where flying from Washington to Los Angeles is a better experience both for people in the plane and on the ground, because we've succeeded in reimagining air traffic management, and we've made flight cleaner, greener, safer, and quieter. And by flight, I mean both airplanes and helicopters. I see a future where our grandchildren's children are drinking cleaner water, breathing cleaner air, and making use of cleaner energy, not only because NASA has helped us better understand climate change, but because of the work our scientists are doing in areas like green aviation and water purification. I see a future where fewer Americans are losing a sister or brother or a son because the medical technologies we perfect to protect our astronauts from exposure to radiation on a long-duration spaceflight help revolutionize medicine and the medical field. Or because the technologies we've developed to detect signs of life on other planets continue to help emergency workers listen for beating hearts in the rubble after a disaster, as was done with the Finder device after this past summer's catastrophic earthquake in Nepal. I see a world where girls and young people of color are more excited about pursuing education in science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math. A world where, unlike today, there will no longer be any states in the Union where no woman takes the Advanced Placement AP Computer Science exam as we have today, thanks in part to NASA's work to promote STEM education and careers. I see a future where people in even the most remote corners of our world have access to Wi-Fi, as do astronauts living and working in space today. I see a world where the stunning images being sent home to us from the James Webb Space Telescope teach my granddaughters and their kids more about our universe than has ever been known before or conceptualized. I see a future where maybe, just maybe, humanity finds the answer to the age-old question, a question that Thales must have thought to himself as he stared up at the night sky, of whether we're alone in the universe. While none of us can know for sure what the future has in store, there is one thing that we can say with a good degree of certainty. None of these things can happen on their own. They will require future leaders to continue to make the decisions that point us in this direction. Future presidents, future administrators, and future citizens like you. President Obama has set us on a visionary course. It's my sincere hope that future leaders from all sides of the political spectrum see it through, because I truly believe the sort of future I laid out is well within our grasp. Right now, the astronaut who will take the first human steps on Mars and the scientist who will discover the next great breakthrough that makes that step possible might very well be sitting in a classroom right here in Washington, D.C. Every choice that she or he makes to spend that extra half hour in the library, or to sign up for that extra elective, or frankly, to pick up a guitar or a paintbrush for the very first time, all these choices bring us closer to the future that we all dream it is and can be possible. You know, I had a good friend who gave her life to the cause of human exploration. Her name was Krista McAuliffe. And Krista once said, and I appreciate this as the son of teachers, that teaching allowed her to touch the future. I believe that we're at a teachable moment when it comes to the future of exploration. The question is, what are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with it? Are we going to seize this moment and use it to touch the future? I hope the answer is yes. And I want to thank everyone at the Center for American Progress for doing your part to make us help us to seize the moment and make the answer yes. I look forward to your discussion, and thank you so very much again for allowing me to be with you today. Thank you.